Most homes make noises, creaking floor, popping pipes, settling wood. But a Hmong family in Minnesota heard something a house should never make. A baby crying in their attic. They had no baby, no crib, no toys, and when they heard the history of the house, they understood why the crying never stopped. In the early 1990s, the Tao family moved into an old rental home in St. Paul. A fresh start, new jobs, new school, a chance to rebuild. The house was old but clean. Quiet neighborhood, friendly landlord. Everything seemed fine until the first night. At 3:27 a.m., the mom, woke to a sound she couldn't understand. A baby's cry. Soft, weak, coming from above her. She held her breath, listening. The crying slowly faded away. She woke her husband, too, but he heard nothing. She told herself it was just exhausting, until it happened again the next night, and the next. Always at 3:27 a.m., always the same fragile cry, and only Mai could hear it. A week later, Tu suddenly woke up in bed. "I heard it," he whispered. Both of them sat still. The crying traveled through the air vents, soft, uneven, like it was crawling from room to room. Mai went to check on their children, who shared a bedroom. Their son, Pao, who is 10 years old, was asleep in his bed. Their daughter, Mi, who is 4 years old, was curled up quietly in hers. Nothing seemed out of place. But when Mai stepped into the hallway, she heard the crying again, as if whatever was making the noise knew she was there and wanted her to know. The attic door was a simple pull-down panel in the hallway ceiling. It's always stayed shut until the 10th night. Mai stepped into the hallway and froze. The attic door hung open, just an inch, like someone had pushed it downward from inside. "Tu, did you open this?" "No," he said, staring at it. "I haven't touched it." They shut it tight. 2 hours later, a loud thump shook the ceiling. Then soft, dragging sounds, like something small was crawling across the attic boards. The crying returned, but this time it sounded frustrated, uneasy, almost angry. One night, their son Pao sprinted into their bedroom, terrified. "Mom, something was walking above my bed." Mai felt her blood run cold. The attic was directly above her kid's room. "What did it sound like?" she said carefully. Pao swallowed hard. Little footsteps, like a kid. He hesitated. "Mom, is there someone living up there?" Mai didn't answer, because she didn't know. A few mornings later, Mai woke up to an unfamiliar sound. A soft rattling. She followed it to the kid's bedroom and found her daughter Mi sitting in the corner, happily playing with something in her hands. "Mi, what are you doing awake? It's so early in the morning." Mi giggled and held up an object. A baby rattle. Old, yellow plastic, cracked around the edges. Mai froze. "Where did you get that?" Her daughter smiled brightly. "The little baby gave it to me." Mai's heart dropped. "What baby?" Mi pointed upward toward the ceiling. "The baby that cries. He said he wanted to play so he won't cry anymore." Mai softly took the toy from her. Cold, dusty, like it's been untouched for years. Her daughter became upset and started crying. "He's lonely, Mommy. He's very lonely." Mai had never felt more afraid in her life. When an uncle came to visit, Mai told him about the crying in the toy. Mai pretty much told him the whole story. After a long pause, he said, "Houses keep memories. Sometimes they keep the things that never left." Mai felt sick. What kind of thing gives my daughter a toy? His eyes darkened. A spirit that died crying will cry forever. Mai whispered, "What should we do?" He shook his head. "There's nothing you can do. Don't talk to it. Don't open the attic. And don't let your children listen to it. Leave this house. Your family can stay with us until you find a new home." Tu had enough. He tried to be rational. Perhaps an animal has gotten into the attic. Maybe a squirrel with babies, making all those noises. The next day, he climbed into the attic with a flashlight. Mai waited below, anxiously. The moment Tu poked his head inside, the temperature in the attic dropped sharply. His breath turned white. He scanned the attic. No animals, no holes, no nest, no sign of anything alive. Just old boxes, insulation, and, in the far corner, a small shadow. Still, curled up. He thought it was a raccoon and shouted, "Hey, get out!" The shadow twitched, then a soft baby-like giggle came from that small shadow, and that shadow slipped under the insulation. The flashlight flickered violently. Tu scrambled down the ladder, nearly falling. He said, "We have to leave. We have to leave this place." But they couldn't afford to move, and the landlord refused to break the lease. Desperate, they asked their longtime neighbor, an older Hmong man who lived there for decades. When they described the crying in the toy, he looked pained. "I'm surprised you stayed that long," he said quietly. Then they both stared at him. Then he said, "This house has a story. Years earlier, a young couple lived here, and they had their first baby. One brutal winter night, the baby just disappeared. No sound, no struggle, no trace. Police, volunteers, neighbors, everyone searched. Nothing was ever found. The mother insisted she heard the baby crying in the attic every night. Same times, same sobs. But every time they checked, nothing was there. She became obsessed, eventually hospitalized. The father left soon afterward. The attic remained untouched for years, until Tu opened it. The following night, a storm rolled in. The crying began earlier than usual. Not soft this time, but loud, raw, unsteady, echoing through the vents and walls. Mi woke and whispered, "Mommy, the baby wants to come down." Then the attic door creaked slowly, opening by itself. Mai had enough. She grabbed the kids and ran. Tu stayed a second too long, staring up into the darkness. A shape moved at the top of the ladder. Small, quiet, rocking gently, like a child trying to soothe itself. No eyes, no face, just a silhouette. Tu decided not to wait. He also ran out the door with his family. They fled into the storm and never came back. The next few tenants didn't last long. Some neighbors said that at exactly 3:27 a.m., they hear a faint baby's cry drifting from the house. Other times, a soft rattling noise, like an old baby toy being shaken gently over and over, waiting for someone to play. So if you ever hear a baby crying in your home and you don't have a baby, don't go looking for it, because some cries aren't meant to be answered. People say the scariest part of college is the high cost of tuition. They're wrong. The scariest part is discovering you're not the only one living in your off-campus apartment, even when the unit above you is supposed to be empty. For one freshman at the University of Minnesota, everything began with footsteps in the abandoned apartment above her. Her name is Mela, a Hmong freshman from Wisconsin, attending the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. When she first moved to Minneapolis, she stayed with her aunt and uncle. But the commute was exhausting. Her little cousins made study at home impossible, and she constantly felt obligated to help with chores and errands around the house. So she finally found her own place, a small one-bedroom unit in a quiet, old brick apartment building near the campus. Her parents were nervous, but Mela was excited and proud of herself. Living alone meant freedom. No checking in, eat whenever she wanted, no little cousins barging in, no chores waiting. Everything was perfect. Her building was over 100 years old, creaking stairs, clanging radiators, long, dim hallways. Typical Minneapolis buildings. She lived on the second floor, and Unit 3B, directly above her, has been empty for months. So this should give her some peace and quiet from above. At least that's what she thought. The entire third floor was scheduled for renovation, so all 4 units were vacant. It wasn't fancy, but it was quiet, close to campus, and most importantly, surprisingly affordable. And for Mela, it was freedom. Until the footsteps started. Around midnight, Mela heard footsteps above her. Not running, not stopping, just slow, steady, pacing. Back and forth, back and forth. She assumed someone moved in late. Or maybe, just maybe, someone snuck in to stay there secretly. But when she mentioned it to the manager, he shook his head and said, "No one is in 3B. It's been vacant since last winter." Maya didn't know what to make of this. And what was worse, a stranger hiding upstairs or footsteps with nobody living there? Weeks passed. She almost got used to the footsteps. Then the footsteps changed. It got louder, and they started reacting to her, imitating her. She walked to the kitchen. The footsteps shifted above the kitchen. She sat at her desk. They moved above her desk. She lay in bed. They settled above her bed. One night, she took a single step backward. The footsteps above her did the same. Perfectly synchronized. Old buildings creak, but they don't mirror you. Eventually, the footsteps were ruining her sleep. She was exhausted in class, constantly on edge. She finally told the manager, "I think someone broke into the upstairs. Do something or I'm calling the cops." The manager went pale. He avoided her eyes. "I'll check it tonight," he said softly. "I'll bring maintenance as well." At 8 p.m., he called her. He said the unit was empty, dusty, untouched, no signs of anyone. That terrified her even more. The next night, her 2 college friends came over. They didn't believe any of it and wanted to check for themselves. They all walked up to the 3rd floor. The hallway was silent, lights flickering, carpet worn thin. They reached Unit 3B. The door was dusty. The peephole was covered with tape from within. One of her friends knocked. No answer. The friend knocked again. Louder. Still nothing. They turned to leave when footsteps approached the door from the inside. Light, slow, deliberate. All three of them froze. The footsteps stopped right behind the door. The doorknob twitched just once, as if something has grabbed it. One of her friends whispered, "We're done. We're done." They sprinted downstairs. The next morning, Mela demanded an answer from the property manager. She threatened to break her lease contract and leave right away. The manager sighed. This building wasn't always apartments. Over 50 years ago, it was a small psychiatric boarding house. Not a hospital, not an asylum, just a place where long-term patients lived. When the boarding house was shut down, the building was renovated and converted into apartments. New paint, new floors, new doors. But the history never left, and Unit 3B had a story of its own. A few years ago, a grad student moved into 3B. Normal guy, focused, quiet. But the neighbors heard strange things. Furniture dragging late at night. Footsteps circling in tight loops. The door opening and closing, even though nobody saw him leave. Then one night, everything escalated. Frantic slamming, drawers ripping open, cabinets shaking. When the manager rushed upstairs, the doors was sealed from the inside. The grad student had metal brackets, bars drilled into the frame, the entire door blocked. He wasn't keeping people out. He was keeping something else in. The police forced the door open, one bracket at a time. When they finally got inside, the room was empty. No broken window, no escape route, no hole in the ceiling, no place to hide. His coat hung on the door, his wallet on the counter. Dinner was half prepped. But he was gone, never came back. And as far as the managers know, he was never found. Nobody who knows the history of the apartment wants to stay in Unit 3B, or even in the units near it. That's why the rent was so cheap. After learning this, Mela started having dreams. Not normal dreams. Dreams that felt so real. Every night she saw Unit 3B as it looked decades ago, when the building was still a psych house. But nothing in the dreams was peaceful. She saw nurses in pale uniforms, faces blurred, gloves trembling. She saw them restraining patients who didn't need restraining, dragging them across the floor, forcing them into corners, whispering over their cries. And always, the nurses forced them to walk in circles. The same looping pattern Mela heard every night. The same loops found in the dust. The same loops the vanished student walked. Every morning, she woke up sweating, unsure which was worse, the footsteps above her or the dreams inside her. On her final night, the dreams came back sharper than ever. She saw the nurses again, forcing terrified patients to walk in tight, repeating circles, around and around, never stopping. Then one nurse turned and stared directly at Mela. She jolted awake, and she wasn't alone. Because this time, the footsteps weren't upstairs. They were inside her apartment, in her living room, just outside of her bedroom, slow, deliberate, carefully tracing the same loops from her dreams. A circle, then another, and another. The footstep drifted past her kitchen, past her couch, and stopped at her bedroom door. The doorknob began to shake, gently, then a little bit more. Mela froze. She pinched herself. She was awake. A voice inside her whispered, "Run, Mela, run." She grabbed her keys, sprinted barefoot out the door, and then stopped until she reached one of her friend's dorm. She moved out the very next morning. It is said that Unit 3B remains permanently sealed. Dusty footprints still appear in perfect looping patterns. Tenants below never stay long, and those who remain report the same thing. Footsteps above them, copying their movements, dreams that grow more vivid the longer they stay there. Same loops, same hours, same rhythm. Because whatever happened in Unit 3B never stopped walking. Not in the room, not in the dreams, not in the dark. Some people say fear is just imagination, that if you don't see anything, nothing is really there. But what if the house hears you first? What if something notices that you're alone and curious and just old enough to be afraid? This is the story of John in the attic he never slept in again. They say most hauntings don't start with screams. They start small. A creak, a footstep, a sound you explain away because admitting the truth feels worse. For John, the fear came in waves. 3 nights in a row, each one worse than the last. And after the 3rd night, he was done. When John was a kid, his family rented a house in Roseville, Minnesota. His sister claimed all the bedrooms. That left the attic. It was big, finished, warm, and quiet. To a 12-year-old, it felt like freedom, an entire floor to himself. No sharing, no noise, just him and the space above the house. The first night felt normal. No phone, no clock, no outside sounds. Just a house settling into sleep. Until deep into the night, he heard footsteps, soft at first, careful, like someone testing the stairs, then heavier, clearer, coming up into his room. John froze. The footsteps got closer and closer until they reached the top of the stairs and stopped. No breathing, no whisper, no movement, just silence. Eventually, he convinced himself it was nothing, and he fell asleep. It wasn't nothing. The second night, he wasn't even thinking about the attic. He was drifting off to sleep when the doorknob downstairs turned. Click. The hinges creaked. The door at the bottom of the stairs opened. Someone or something was coming up. The door shut. Footsteps climbed the stairs. Slow, heavy, intentional. They reached the top. Then, his blanket moved. Just slightly. Just enough to feel it lying down on its own. John didn't open his eyes. He didn't breathe. He stayed frozen until exhaustion won. In the morning, he acted like nothing happened. The 3rd night changes everything. It started with something impossible. The dishes downstairs began washing themselves. No plates settling, no random noise. Actual washing. Water running, plates clanking, dishes being set on a rack. Exactly how his mother washed dishes. Except she was asleep. The sound stopped, then started again. The downstairs door opened. The knob turned. The hinges creaked. Footsteps climbed toward him. Louder, heavier, closer than ever. John thought to himself, I'm done. I can't do this. So
So he did the only thing a kid in the 90s could think of. He turned on his Super Nintendo. The TV lit the attic. The game loaded. Mario appeared. But John didn't play. He just stared at the screen. His heart pounding so loud, he felt that the house could hear it. The footsteps stopped, but the fear didn't. He whispered to himself, "I'm gonna die unless I run for it." He counted to himself. 1, 2, 3, run! But his body wouldn't move. Finally, after many tries of saying to himself, his body finally moved and he bolted down the stairs, panic all over his face. He burst into his parents' room, yelling, "There's a ghost upstairs! There's a ghost upstairs! I don't want to sleep there anymore!" They didn't believe him. They actually got angry at him, told him to go back to bed, but he refused. Instead, he ran to his oldest sister's room, the farthest place from the attic door that he could think of. She wouldn't let him into her bed, so he slept on her bedroom floor for the rest of the night, terrified, but safe enough. After the third night, he never slept in the attic again. Years later, after the family moved out, the truth followed them. John's father was interviewing a job applicant at their company when he noticed the address, the same rental house they used to stay in at Roseville, Minnesota. He mentioned it casually. The applicant's face changed. He leaned in and asked, "Did you ever experience anything strange in that house?" John's dad said no. The man continued anyway. "We heard footsteps going to the attic every night, back and forth. It scares my kids so badly that we nailed the attic door shut." Then he added something worse. "When I shaved in the bathroom, I always felt someone behind me. One morning I looked, something was there watching me." Upset that I was shaving in its bathroom, John's father said nothing. He didn't have to. Every time John tells his story, the hair on his arms still stands up. He remembers every sound, every step, every second of fear. People can say it was imagination or a dream, but John knows the difference, because whatever was in the attic didn't want him there, and if he would have stayed, it might have wanted more.